Hola. Right now I want to talk about one of the really compelling topics of Spanish grammar, which is the use of the verbs ser and estar in contrast to each other. One thing that I want to say, which is radically different from anything you've probably heard, is that I would say that Spanish actually has one verb that means to be. It also has a verb that means to be situated or to be in a condition. But that's a translation situation and not actually the deepest meaning. Let's go back to Latin to figure out exactly what we're saying with the verbs ser and estar, because there's still a legacy of meaning there. The verb ser comes from a verb in Latin, essa. All right, essa means to exist, to have innate characteristics. We have a word in English that comes from essa. That word is essence. So if you think of the essence of a human, of a building, of an animal, of a planet, those things are going to be ser. And I'll talk momentarily about what I would define as essence. But first, I want to look at the verb stare, S-T long A-R-E. In Latin, that verb means to stand. And so if you think of it as how are you standing, what is the current status, you're going to be able to sort out the situations where you would use estar. Participles that come from this verb give us the words state, status, station. And so with that information, we can see that what we're talking about is ser being essence and estar being status. So let's leave that as the biggest demarcation line between the two verbs. Okay. Now I want to go back and talk about what it means to have essence. First of all, anything that can be attributed to your DNA is going to be essence. So your height, presumably at least some factors of your weight, your eye color, your hair color, until you dye it or get old, and things of that nature. Whether you're robustly healthy or whether you are easily made ill, these are things that if they come from your genes are part of your essence. That doesn't mean you're always that way, because you could be taller if you put on 6-inch platform shoes, and you can lose weight or gain weight. And we do know you can dye your hair color and you can put in colored contacts. So, but you have a genetic thing that defines what you are. This also extends into personality, because you can be an optimist by nature, you can be a pessimist by nature, and there is mounting evidence that these traits are actually built in. You might come from a long line of optimists or pessimists. And also, you may have heard of people who have a little kid and maybe a parent, well, let's take the case of a child who's 2 years old when a parent goes down for bank robbery after a long career of petty theft and is gone for the child's entire childhood. And yet, when the kid's 10, the parent who's not in jail says, "You're just like your parent." And then you have to wonder, because if the kid is showing tendencies like those of the parent who has basically not seen the kid in ages, what does that mean? Does that mean your facial expressions come from genetics? Your reactions to adversity, like when you become upset because somebody broke one of your toys? Does this all come programmed in you? If so, it might be a bit of a challenge to change those things, right? So these are your essence. But you can have good days, and you can change the way you are. And with estar, then, we're talking about our current physical status. Are you well? Are you ill? Our emotional status. Are you happy? Are you sad? Are you so-so? All of these things, and those are the obvious ones, right? Those are estar. But now we want to get away from simply what is built into your system, what's programmed, and what can be changed, happiness, sadness, etc. All right, let's talk about possession of things. If something is yours, like this pen is mine, right? What is one of the defining features of this pen? What's part of its essence? It has red ink, it's made of plastic, it has a metal clip, and it's mine. So possession is part of its essence. I can give it to somebody and then it becomes that person's pen, but the pen itself always is going to belong to somebody. If it's in the store, it belongs to Office Depot. If it's in the factory, it belongs to Papermate until somebody transfers power of it over it, right? And what about what something is made of? Well, we want to say es de plástico. You're not going to change this plastic into something else at any point. What about our nationality? I am a U.S. citizen. I'm American. Most of the people watching this are likely to be American, but not all of you. And you can become American. You can become naturalized if you aren't born in the U.S. or to U.S. parents, U.S. citizen parents. But you have to go through a process. And then it might be a really proud day when you can say, I am American. Okay. Then let's talk about your DNA nationality. Okay. Most of my DNA comes from Irish people. A good chunk of it comes from Scottish people. 8% of it comes from Vikings, Norwegians, but way, way back. And about 3% of me is French. And that's much more recent. But all of us have a place where our DNA comes from genetically, right? So I can say, soy irlandés y escocés. And you can say you are whatever you are. That's not going to change. It's ser. Where are you from? Where were you born? I say, soy de Gary, Indiana. My birth took place in the city limits of Gary at a hospital. My birth certificate says I was born in Gary, Indiana. And so that's part of my essence. Soy de Gary, Indiana. Another aspect of using ser is telling time. Why would time be ser? That's really the essence of that moment. The clock is constantly running in the background of our world. And so time is an essence thing. It's not a temporary thing. In that moment, if it's 1:01 p.m., at that moment, that's what it is. The next moment is not 1:01 p.m., but it has its own essence of time. The time of 1:01 p.m. on whatever date it is will never change. It's always going to be part of its essence. Moving over to estar, we talk about status, physical state, and mental state. We can also talk about location, because part of your state is where you are, right? It is not something that is going to be permanent. And I'll show you what I mean by that in a moment. Where are you right now? If you shift in your seat, you're not in the same place. You're relatively close, but you're not. Okay? You got these X, Y, and Z axes, and you've got time and everything. So that's all your location. Okay? But what about big things that never move? What about the Rocky Mountains? Okay. When I talk about the Rocky Mountains, am I going to use ser or estar? Son en Colorado or están en Colorado? Well, folks, that's estar. And you might be thinking, holy cow! How can it be estar? Those things have been there a long time and they're not moving, they're big. Well, if you have ever driven on the Pennsylvania Turnpike, there are spots where you drive through tunnels that are dynamited out of the mountains. So part of those mountains there were moved. And with enough dynamite, patience, and labor, you could just get rid of the mountains. You could move them completely. Could you decide you wanted a lot of gravel and turn the Rocky Mountains into gravel? Yes, absolutely. All you need is a lot of dynamite. You have tunnels in Glenwood through the Rockies. So a little bit of work has been done already on moving the Rocky Mountains. But then you also want to look at it from another perspective. Is the Earth stationary or does it rotate? It rotates. Does it go around the sun while it rotates? Yes, it does. Is the sun moving through the Milky Way? It is. Is the Milky Way moving through the universe? It is. If you want to be freaked out a little bit, the Earth is moving around the sun at about 67,000 miles per hour, and the sun is moving around the Milky Way at approximately 514,500 miles per hour. You don't feel it, but you're never in the same place very long. That's why we use estar. Can we use ser and estar with the same adjectives? Yes. Would they have the same meanings? No. One very common question that could use both verbs is como. Como es tu hermano? That means, what is your brother's essence? What is your brother like? Como está tu hermano? How is your brother doing? What's his current physical or emotional status? Okay. Also, some adjectives get used with both verbs with very different meanings. For example, one that I can give you is aburrido. Estoy aburrido means I am bored. But soy aburrido means I am boring. That's not something most people want to be. So it's better to be bored than boring. Es mejor estar aburrido que ser aburrido. Then we have another circumstance under which we use ser always. This is not a rule of Spanish grammar. This is a law of Spanish grammar. And that's with a type of noun called a predicate nominative. You can look that up if you need to, but I'll tell you what it means. When you have a subject and a verb and a direct object, something like I own a car, then the car is a direct object. But when you use I am instead of I own or I buy, then what you have is not an attempt to act upon the noun that follows, but merely to use it as a descriptor. I am a professor. All right, I am a professor has a noun in the part of the sentence called the predicate, which is everything from the verb on. But it's not a direct object. And for reasons I won't go into, we call it a predicate nominative. Okay? So anytime you have a subject and the verb be followed by a noun, you're going to use ser in Spanish. Now, the Spanish books tend to say that you use ser with professions. Well, that's because a profession is a noun. So when I say yo soy profesor, I'm saying I am a noun. The noun happens to be a profession. But we have a Simon and Garfunkel song, I am a rock, I am an island. And we're being metaphorical here. And yet in Spanish, we would use ser because both rock and island are nouns. So if you see a sentence where you're supposed to choose between ser and estar, and you say, you see something like, el coche Lexus, it's going to be es, partly because it'll always be a Lexus, and it's part of its DNA, but also because Lexus is a noun, right? So we have to watch out for that. And then we have one seeming contradiction to the essa versus stare situation, the essence versus status situation that I described, which is one type of location. We talk about the location of a mountain, and I say it's estar. Talk about the location of your house, it's estar. All right? But what about the location of an event? The location of a concert, the location of a party, the location of a church service, the location of a class. All of those, lectures, any number of other types of events are going to be talked about with ser. The reason for that is that if you go to a concert, let's say you have a favorite singer, and you go to Bruce Springsteen's concerts every time he performs, you follow him around the country. So on Friday you go to Cleveland, and he performs again Saturday in Cleveland, but you don't say the concert está en Cleveland. You say el concierto es en Cleveland. And there's a good reason for that. The reason is that when you talk about a concert, talk about its time and its location, you are talking about the essence of that concert. All right? The concert on Friday night is one essence. The concert on Saturday night is another entity with a different essence. The Saturday concert will not be identical to the Friday concert. If even one person in the audience doesn't show up on Saturday who was there on Friday, you are looking at a changed creature. Right? And if Bruce Springsteen sings Born in the USA on Friday and then sings Born in the USA on Saturday because he's hoarse, you have a different concert. And so the timing and placement of an event is a one-shot deal. It can never be exactly reproduced. And so time and place are essence in that case. So you say, el concierto es a las 7 en Cleveland. Okay? But the location of anything that is not an event, anything that could be picked up by a big enough individual, like Atlas picking up the Earth, will be estar. That pretty well covers what I have at this level on ser versus estar. So I'll let you get on with practicing it. If you have questions, get hold of me. Thanks.